And here are two cards. Not from Chaos Origin, I believe. Let me make sure. Yeah, these are from the... I forgot what the name of the pack was, but I think we've already seen some Toon support from that pack. And I don't know what these cards do, but I've seen people already complain about these. I haven't really looked into it because I didn't want to get spoiled. But I've seen people... yeah, I can see chat right now all spamming aware, so... Dark Eyes Illusionist Faceless Mage. Level 4 Dark Illusion Effect Monster. 0 attack, 0 defense. You can discard this card, then activate one of these effects, but only each effect once per turn. You can place a Mind Scan from your hand or deck on your field face up, which I believe is the other card. And then, or you add one monster from your grave to your hand that mentions Toon World, and then you can special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. If this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle. Okay, so it's nice that you can use both effects on the same turn. I am a fan of designs like this. When they make cards that are not completely dead if you draw them in multiples. Of course, in the beginning of the game, you're not going to have many monsters in the graveyard, but later down the line, this could be very useful. But I assume it all... so this card so far isn't toxic, so I'm expecting the worst from Mind Scan here, but you're going to place Mind Scan, which is the other Continuous Trap, immediately. All right. Mind Scan, Continuous Trap card. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. While you have a Toon card on your field or graveyard, your opponent must play with their hand revealed. Also, you can look at their set cards at any time. Okay. I guess that's why you guys are hating it, because it's another card that lets you look at your opponent's hand. I don't know what's up with these recently. This card is even better than Noroi or Cool Tune Rotary because it just gets permanent knowledge. Like even the card that they, like for the rest of the game, if they activate a card that draws or whatever, you're going to see what they draw into. It also completely destroys Vanquish Soul because instead of looking at the hand, they reveal it. And I'm pretty sure that the ruling is the following, because if a card is already revealed, you cannot reveal it again. Because it's already like flipped over basically when you're playing the game, so you can't reveal it again, which is crazy. If you're playing against Vanquish Soul, you just win, and you get to look at the set cards, so that's quite something. All right, so like here's the thing, part of me wants to hate that, but on the other hand, I feel like you gotta give it to the Toon card at least just a little bit, that it is pretty cool and flavorful for a Pegasus card to do that. I don't know, as a fan of the original anime, there's at least a part of me that finds this cool. Of course, the gameplay itself at the end of the day might be whack, but there's at least a part of it that's cool. The second effect, okay. If you have a Toon monster and a Toon spell in your field and or grave, you can declare the name of one card that was not activated and did not activate its effect in this chain. Negate the activated effect. Oh! Until the end, while this card is face up. Wait, okay. Okay, now I see it. I see it. Okay. So this is... Oh god. Yeah. No, this definitely is this is definitely a step in the toxic direction. I mean, because here's the thing, right? Cards like Noroi and Rotary are, I understand that people find them annoying, but just from a power level perspective, they don't actually win the game for you, right? Like you look at their hand, you get information, yes, but you do still have to work with that information and figure out a way to win the game, right? You can't do anything about the cards that your opponent is holding, right? Like you look at those cards and sometimes those cards beat you anyways. Which is not to say that those cards aren't powerful, but quite frankly, those cards are powerful because of the other things that they do, right? It's just like Noroi is a good card because it summons a card from the deck and then does the other thing for free. Rotary is a good card because it adds a spell from the deck to the hand and also does the other thing for free, right? If they didn't do the card advantage thing, if they didn't generate engine for you, they wouldn't see play just to look at the hand. this card essentially gives you the information, but then also every turn is basically prohibition. Now, sure, you have to preemptively do it, but still, you're going to know what your opponent is playing. You're going to even see the cards that they're holding, and you basically get to just declare the best card in their hand every time, and you know they have it, and you can just make it a blank. That's insane. That is insane. That alone, quite frankly, that alone is already like a really strong win condition for the Toon deck. Even besides any, I don't even, quite frankly, I don't remember all the other things that they could do, because we react to so many cards. I remember the Toon support being solid, but I'm not sure if it was good enough to see play. Like, I thought the cards were good beforehand, but now, like, this is a genuine win condition. This is a genuine win condition. Now, it's worth noting that this card is not a Toon card, right? So if you activate this to place the trap, you don't get to immediately look at their hand. You do need another Toon card, right? It mentions Toon World. Yeah, but this card says, while you have a Toon card in your field or grave, to look at the hand. Like, you're not gonna discard the Faceless Mage and immediately get to look at their hand. You do have to have another. It's basically part of like 2-card combos, right? But or you start with your combo and then you search this card later, right? That's also definitely possible. Bookmark searches the monster. Yeah, there's plenty of ways to set this up. But this as a 1-card combo is not going to let you look at your opponent's hand. But like, I think this is a maybe this is what was missing to make this deck like actually meta viable, because this is a winning strategy going first. This paired with any amount of other interruptions is already a winning strategy, in my opinion, in an average game of modern Yu-Gi-Oh. In an average game of modern Yu-Gi-Oh, you're going to look at your opponent's hand, you're going to be able to play around their non-engine better because you know they have it, and then you can already eliminate the best card in their hand, their best starter, you can eliminate with this card. So all the rest, your other non-engine, your other interruptions can all go towards like the second or third best starter that they have. And then an average game of Yu-Gi-Oh, where like your opponent's hand consists of like 2 or 3 starters, 1 or 2 non-engine, and like 1 engine requirement or something like that, which is a pretty accurate description of an average modern Yu-Gi-Oh hand, right? That's what most modern Yu-Gi-Oh hands are. Like, you literally are playing against like 1 or 2 cards after you activate this card, with the rest of your engine and non-engine, which is crazy. Like, there's gonna be by the time that this card comes out, if we still have like the negate non-engine running around, like Ash, Impulse, Purge, Imprem, or whatever. I don't know if this deck can play Impulse or Purge, but like this card, imagine playing against this card plus Ash. Like, you're gonna have to draw crazy to even play the game against those, because like this checks 1 starter, Ash checks another starter. Like, most decks don't play through 2 or 3 negations. I don't know. This is pretty strong. This is really, really strong. The only thing to even say anything positive about this, right? The only loophole here is that this card has to remain face up on the field in order to stop your opponent from using the card. So let's say you're playing a game and you lock your opponent from using the best card in their hand with this. If your opponent can use the other cards in their hand and focus on removing this card, then you can then unlock the other card again, right? It's not like you're not taking the card away from them, you're just blocking it while this card is here. It's very much like Prohibition, right? So there is counterplay to this in the form of removal, right? Like, if the rest of their hand can get to like SP Little Knight, or if they have, let's say they have Lightning Storm or Duster in hand, you can't afford to call the starter because then this card gets dusted, right? And then it's gone. But yeah, dude, this deck could also just like side deck Mind Crush for going first. Imagine that. Imagine going against this card and Mind Crush. Your opponent just looks at your hand, calls the best card with Mind Crush, calls the second best card with Mind Scan. Damn. Okay. Yeah, very mixed feelings about this. Because, like, I don't know. I haven't made my mind up about this looking at the hand trend that's been going on recently. I'm definitely not a fan when the cards do something on top of looking at the hand. Like I said earlier, Noroi and Rotary, I wouldn't call them like peak design personally. But when I'm playing Cool Tune, for example, I do think it's kind of fun to look at my opponent's hand. I'm not able to do anything about it, but I can figure out a game plan to win. It's kind of like solving a puzzle. So from my perspective, when I'm playing Cool Tune, it's okay. But I can understand why from the other side it isn't. When I look at their hand, like there's a couple of games where it's just much simpler because you know they have like one starter. So I'm like, okay, obviously I'm gonna negate that one starter with Imperm or whatever. But like I definitely think looking at their hand and being able to take a card away from it, which is basically, this is like an in-engine triple tactics talents hand rip, pretty much. Because I mean, they keep the card, but they can't use it, which is the same as ripping it, pretty much. I mean, you can still discard it for effects and stuff like that, but still, yeah. Supposedly pro Yu-Gi-Oh being a 2-player game. I mean, looking at your opponent's hand doesn't stop my opponent from playing the game per se, right? I don't know. I understand why people hate it as much, but I think and I'm not even saying I'm a fan of it. I feel like you're misconstruing what I'm saying already. But it's like, it's not the thing I'm worried about the most. I would rather play against my opponent like looking at my hand than my opponent like going first with Ash Blossom in hand, for example. I'm just saying it's not the biggest problem that I have with modern Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I would rather show my opponent my hand than my opponent have Ash when I'm going second, for example. And I will die on that hill. But when the card looks at your opponent's hand and does something, it's definitely far gone. Don't you think the most important skill is to play your outs and guessing what your opponent has? It's an important skill, yeah, but it's not my favorite skill. It's a very important skill in modern Yu-Gi-Oh to be able to guess what your opponent is holding, but it's not without flaw because it's not like something that you can be... I mean, even if you're the best possible at understanding what your opponent has in their hand, it doesn't mean you never get punished for your opponent just having a card that was unlikely for them to have or whatever. How does a random card rip work in a physical game? Usually people lay down their hand face down and you roll a die. Like they shuffle their hand, put the cards face down, and you roll a die for a random rip. I think hand knowledge being bad is slightly overrated. Vanquish Soul shows their opponent their cards and still wins all the time. Yes, but that's not a great argument because in Vanquish Soul you show your opponent your cards when you're doing your thing, right? Like when you are resolving your cards, you are showing your opponent your hand, which is not the same because then you're inherently like when you, for example, when you activate Holly Sue and then you activate Fire and Dark, show your opponent like Magnamood and Ash Blossom and summon Raisin from your deck. Like, yeah, your opponent has knowledge on your hand, but that's in a spot where you're already resolving your effects, right? Whereas when the opponent, like, of course, like, hand knowledge is powerful. Don't get me wrong. Please don't act like I'm saying these cards are not powerful. And this card in particular, I do think is absolutely freaking toxic. But I think there is all I'm trying to create is some nuance in this discussion about like hand knowledge, because there are definitely cards that are being created differently than others, even within the realm of hand knowledge. Even it's the same thing in the realm of negates. Like some negates are more toxic than others. Even if I'm not a fan of negates as a whole, there's some of them that I'm more okay with than others. And that's all I'm trying to get to with this discussion is like this card is definitely less okay than something like Noroi, which Noroi, sure, Noroi was annoying when it looked at your hand, but the hand knowledge from Noroi was quite... on a competitive level, the hand knowledge from Noroi was the least important thing in K9 Vanquish Soul. Because K9 Vanquish Soul, it didn't matter if they know your hand or not. If they make their board, they win like 95% of the time anyways. Like you just show them your hand to confirm like, oh yeah, I'm dead next turn. But like it didn't really matter. It really didn't matter. Noroi is toxic, but not because it checks the hand. Dude, Noroi isn't even toxic. Noroi is just tour guide, basically. Noroi is fine. Noroi doesn't matter. Noroi is an okay card. The card is Ripper. The problem is Ripper in K9. It's not Noroi. Noroi is fine. Noroi is an average Yu-Gi-Oh card for the most part. It has a random look at the opponent's hand, which I'm not a fan of, but quite frankly, it doesn't matter in modern Yu-Gi-Oh that Ripper looks at the hand. The problem is the Noroi. The problem is that is what happens after Noroi is summoned and resolves. Bro just called Noroi mid. Yeah, there's a freaking reason why the majority of Vanquish Soul K9 decks play one copy to maybe search sometimes, and why it doesn't happen in most games. If Noroi was that good, then people would be playing 3 of it in every single K9 Vanquish Soul deck, but they're not. The majority of Vanquish Soul K9 decks play 0 to 1 Ripper. That is the average number of I keep saying Ripper. The average number of Norois is 0 to 1 copies. It's not that strong. Traumatized with Ripper, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, it's not even, we don't even have to have this discussion right now about hand looking in general. It's just let's return to what we're doing right now. This card in particular is toxic because it looks at your opponent's hand at any time, and not only that, but also takes away the best card from it. Not just once, but every turn, right? Like, you're going first. On your first turn, you can even, like, you can declare Nibiru, right? If you see that they have it before summon 5. So you declare Nib, can't use it. If they're holding a hand trap for a specific, if they declare, if they are holding a hand trap for a choke point, like Ash Blossom or whatever, can't do that either, because they could just declare it earlier, like, you know. So going on your turn 1, you're going to stop a hand trap. Then you pass the turn. Now you're going to redeclare. You're going to redeclare the best starter in their hand, and so on and so forth, right? So it's quite crazy. It's really quite crazy, this card. I'm not a fan of it. Doesn't hand looking trivialize the recent video on how to make reads? I mean, yeah, in a game where you know what your opponent has, you don't have to make reads. That's pretty obvious. All right. Does the card not need to be in the chain? No, the card cannot be in the chain. So what you cannot do with this card is you can't just chain it when your opponent activates something. So for example, if your opponent has a lightning storm in their hand, you have to call it before they activate it. You can't chain it to the lightning storm.